Welcome to this deep dive
Yeah.
where we're going to be looking at how to turn obstacles into advantages.
Mm.
We've got all sorts of sources for you today.
Yeah.
A mix of like historical figures and philosophical concepts
Right.
and even some like practical advice.
Yeah.
So think of this as your crash course on how to find hidden strength in any challenge.
Absolutely. And this whole idea,
Yeah.
this isn't some new thing.
Right.
This has been around for centuries.
Yeah.
Like, the Stoics,
Right.
they were masters at this.
Okay, so how did they approach obstacles so differently?
Well, they really believed
Yeah,
that your inner will
yeah.
is untouchable. Like no
Mm.
matter what's happening outside in the
Mhm.
external world,
Yeah,
those events, even if they're like super terrible,
right.
they can't actually break you
Mm.
unless you let them.
So it's almost like building up this inner strength,
Exactly.
like a mental fortress.
Yeah, they called it building an inner citadel,
Huh.
like a space within yourself
Mm,
that can remain strong and unshakable.
I like that.
And you see this
Yeah.
play out in real life. I
Yeah.
mean, take Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
Imagine leading a nation through a civil war,
Yeah.
but also you're battling like severe depression.
Well, that's
Right.
that's almost unimaginable. I
Yeah.
can't even focus on a conference call when I have a headache.
Right.
How did he manage that?
Well, his lifelong struggle with what they used to call melancholy
Right.
actually equipped him to lead
Mm-hmm.
with incredible resilience
Yeah.
and empathy.
Mm.
It's like those challenges forged
Yeah.
an unbreakable will inside him.
It puts that quote in a whole new light, right?
Yeah.
This too shall pass.
Right.
It becomes even more powerful when you know
Absolutely.
the depths of his struggles.
And it reminds us that no matter how tough things get,
Right.
they're not permanent.
Yeah.
And that perspective can be incredibly empowering.
It can be.
Yeah.
So we're talking about inner strength.
Right.
What about our outer strength?
Yeah.
Our next source tells a story of Theodore Roosevelt,
Oh.
who went from a sickly child
Mm-hmm.
to the epitome of the strenuous life.
That's an amazing transformation.
It is.
Roosevelt had debilitating asthma as a boy,
Wow.
but instead of letting it define him,
Right.
he rigorously trained his body,
Mm.
building the strength to overcome those limitations.
It's inspiring.
It is.
But it also makes you think, like, could I handle myself if things suddenly got worse?
Mm-hmm.
Would I have that resilience,
Yeah.
that strength?
It's a question worth asking.
It is.
And this whole idea of preparation
Right.
is key.
So that brings us to the pre-mortem. It's like mentally rehearsing for failure. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
And it's linked to a Stoic practice
Okay.
called premeditatio malorum,
Oh,
which means premeditation of evils.
okay.
Imagine a CEO, before launching a project,
Right.
gets her team together and says, all right, let's assume this failed. What went wrong?
So before they even begin,
Yeah.
why would you do that?
By envisioning potential problems in advance,
Okay.
you're actually better prepared to handle them if they
Wow.
happen.
Mm.
It's not about being pessimistic.
Right.
It's about managing expectations and being ready for anything.
So it's kind of like that Mike Tyson quote, everyone has a plan
It's-
until they get punched in the face.
Right.
Life can throw some jabs.
Absolutely. Anticipating setbacks helps us stay grounded
Yeah.
and not get blindsided by reality.
Hmm.
It's about acknowledging that things will go wrong
Okay.
and planning for it.
Yeah. So we've talked about building inner strength
Right.
and preparing for setbacks.
Yeah.
But what about those things we just can't change?
Mm.
Our next source explores the art of acquiescence,
Right.
accepting what is.
Think of Thomas Jefferson.
Okay.
He had a speech impediment,
Hmm.
yet he drafted the Declaration of Independence, one of history's most powerful documents,
So he found a different way
Yes.
to express himself.
on a different path
Yeah.
to make an impact.
It's about recognizing your limitations
Exactly.
and finding ways to work with them.
Yeah, and even turn them into advantages.
Right.
Take a doctor's diagnosis.
Right.
You might not like it,
Okay.
but accepting it is the first step towards healing.
It's like accepting that traffic lights exist.
Yes.
We don't get angry at every red light.
Exactly.
We accept them as part of the system
Right?
and adjust our route.
Precisely. And sometimes those adjustments
Yeah.
lead us to unexpected benefits.
Okay.
Think about Phil Jackson, the basketball coach.
Right.
A hip injury forced him to sit during games.
Right.
But this actually enhanced
Sure.
his authority and coaching style.
It's like the obstacle itself
Right.
forced him to become a better coach.
It did.
So we're talking about accepting things we can't control,
Mm.
But our next source takes this a step further. Amor, Fati.
Yeah.
Loving your fate.
This is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Imagine your factory burning down, and your
Oh,
first reaction is,
yeah.
great, now I can rebuild and innovate.
Wow.
That was Thomas Edison,
Mm.
embracing even disaster with joy.
That's,
Yeah.
that sounds a little extreme.
Right.
But I guess constantly dwelling on the negative doesn't really help.
Exactly. Why choose to feel anything but good?
Okay.
The boxer, Jack Johnson,
Yeah.
he famously smiled, even while being taunted and injured during fights.
Wow.
He chose to find strength and joy
Wow.
in those moments.
So we're not just accepting what is,
Right.
but finding something positive in it.
Exactly.
Seeing each obstacle as a step forward.
And this leads to the idea of perseverance.
Okay.
It's not just about solving one problem.
Yeah.
It's about having the will to endure many challenges
Right.
over a long period of time. Think about Odysseus, right?
Okay.
His journey back home after the Trojan War.
Right.
It took him 10 years. 10 years. He faced storms and monsters and temptation.
No.
You name it.
Yeah.
But he never gave up.
That puts my traffic woes in perspective. So it's not just about like that initial effort
Exactly.
to tackle one problem.
It's not just persistence.
Yeah.
It's about willpower.
Yeah.
Like a deep well of willpower to keep going.
Okay.
No matter what.
No matter how many roadblocks you hit.
The Germans have this great word,
Oh.
Sitzfleisch.
Okay.
It means sitting flesh,
Okay.
but it refers to having staying power,
Huh.
that ability to stick with something,
Yeah.
even when it's tough.
Sitzfleisch.
Sitzfleisch.
I like that. It's
You're
like
right.
the opposite of giving up at the first sign of trouble.
Exactly.
Do you think most people have enough?
That's a good question.
Sitzfleisch.
Yeah.
What would someone like Emerson say about us today?
Right. Are we too quick to get discouraged?
Hmm.
Do we give up too easily?
Yeah.
Our modern world offers so many distractions
Yeah.
and easy outs.
It's so easy to just scroll through social media or binge watch something
Right.
instead of facing a difficult task.
Yeah.
But our next source points to a powerful way to overcome this inertia,
Okay.
finding strength in something larger than ourselves,
Right.
especially in helping others.
It reminds me of James Stockdale and John McCain.
Mm.
They were prisoners of war in Vietnam.
Right.
They found strength,
Yeah.
not by focusing on their own suffering,
Okay.
but on their duty to their fellow prisoners.
Oh.
They had a purpose
Yeah.
beyond their own survival,
Mm.
and that gave them incredible willpower.
It's like that Henry Rollins quote.
Yeah.
This is a tremendous opportunity to be heroic.
Right.
Even when we're facing our own difficulties, there's always a way to contribute to lift others up.
Absolutely. Focusing on others can shift our perspective.
Right.
Helps us see beyond our own fears.
Yeah.
And give us a sense of purpose
Okay.
that goes beyond those individual challenges.
So it's almost like finding a sense of unity. And shared purpose can make us more resilient, exact in the face of our own obstacles.
And this brings us to a concept
Okay.
that might seem a little counterintuitive at first.
Okay.
Meditating on our own mortality.
Hmm.
The Stoics called it memento mori.
Okay.
Remember that you are mortal.
Yeah, I can see how some people might find that a bit morbid.
Right.
But I'm guessing it's not about dwelling on death.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
about using it as a lens
Right.
to see life more clearly.
Right. To appreciate what we have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The French philosopher Michel de Montaigne,
Okay.
he had a near-death experience
Oh, wow.
that completely changed his outlook on life. It made him realize how precious time is.
Yeah.
And it inspired him to live more fully,
Right.
to savor each moment.
It's like, what would you do if you had a year to live?
Exactly.
But instead of fearing death,
Right.
we're using that awareness to
Yeah.
clarify our priorities.
To focus on what matters.
Right.
We all have a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
And remembering that can be a powerful motivator.
It can be.
Helps us overcome procrastination
Right.
and make the most of every opportunity.
So we've explored building inner strength and anticipating challenges and accepting the things we can't control and finding purpose in helping others and even embracing our own mortality.
Yeah,
That's quite a journey.
it is.
But what happens when we reach the summit of one mountain only to see a whole range of mountains ahead of us?
That, my friend, is the reality of life.
Okay.
Overcoming one obstacle doesn't mean you'll never face another.
Right.
It means you're ready
Okay.
for the next challenge,
Yeah.
the next opportunity for growth.
There's that Haitian proverb behind mountains are more mountains.
I love that proverb.
Yeah.
It captures that sense of continuous growth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. continues to challenge.
Yeah.
And that's where the real power lies, right?
I think so.
In adopting that mindset of
Yeah.
continuous learning and improvement.
Seeing each challenge as a chance to become a stronger, wiser version of yourself.
So this brings us back to the core idea of our deep dive.
Right.
How obstacles become the way.
Right.
Our last source offers a really powerful story about Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, who faced a rebellion led by one of his most trusted generals.
Imagine that feeling of betrayal.
I can't even imagine.
This was someone he considered a friend.
Right.
Someone he relied on.
Yeah.
Most emperors would have reacted with rage, seeking revenge.
Yeah.
But Marcus Aurelius chose a different path.
He chose forgiveness in the face of a rebellion. That seems almost impossible. What was he thinking?
Well, Marcus Aurelius understood that clinging to anger and resentment wouldn't really solve anything. You know, he actually saw forgiveness as a strategic advantage.
Huh. How so?
It allowed him to maintain unity within the empire.
Okay.
And focus on resolving the conflict.
So he turned this really challenging situation into an opportunity to show a different way of leading.
Yeah.
Even in the middle of a civil war, that's
even in a civil war.
Remarkable.
It is. He aimed to capture his former general.
Okay.
Not to punish him.
Right.
But to offer forgiveness.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the general was assassinated before that could happen.
Oh, wow.
But Marcus Aurelius still pardoned all the conspirators. He refused to let this rebellion stain his reign with unnecessary bloodshed.
He saw the bigger picture.
He did.
The long-term consequences of his actions.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful example of turning an obstacle into a path.
Right.
A path of compassion and reconciliation. But how can we apply this kind of thinking to our own lives?
So that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah. Our challenges might not be as big as a Roman emperor's.
Right.
But we all deal with conflict and difficult situations.
We do. It's about recognizing that within every obstacle, within every challenging person or situation, there's an opportunity there, a chance to practice patience. To choose understanding over anger.
Right.
To find a way forward that benefits everyone.
So it's about shifting our perspective.
It is.
Seeing those roadblocks as chances to grow and evolve.
Exactly.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've gone through ancient philosophies and inspiring stories.
Right.
And practical strategies for turning obstacles into advantages.
It's been quite a journey.
What stands out to you most?
Well, for me, it's the realization that we have more control than we often realize.
Okay.
We might not be able to control what life throws at us.
Right.
But we can control how we respond to it.
How we perceive those challenges and how we choose to move forward.
It's about taking ownership of our experience.
Even when things are tough.
Especially when things are tough.
It's about cultivating that inner resilience.
Right.
That Sitzfleisch. To keep going when we want to give up.
And it's important to remember that this is ongoing.
Right.
It's a practice.
Like any skill.
Like any skill. Building resilience takes time and effort.
It does.
It's about consistently choosing courage over fear, understanding over judgment, action over inaction.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
I
want to leave you with a challenge.
Right.
Think about one obstacle you're facing right now. How can you reframe it?
Yeah.
How can you turn it into an opportunity for growth?
What would it look like to embrace that challenge, even to find some joy in it, knowing that it's pushing you to become a stronger, wiser version of yourself?
What if instead of seeing it as a setback, you saw it as a stepping stone?
A stepping stone to something better?
Yeah.
A chance to learn to adapt?
Right.
To discover strengths you didn't even know you had?
Remember, the obstacle becomes the way. Always. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you walk away feeling inspired and empowered, and ready to tackle any challenge that comes your way.